Thousands of prisoners learned that their doctor didn't wear blood on his coat by accident. He put it there himself. Out of 3,000 twins experimented on in Auschwitz, only about 200 survived. And the man behind that number wasn't a soldier or a general. He was a doctor with a medical degree and a smile. Today, we're going to look at how one man's obsession with genetics became a death sentence for over 90% of his subjects, and why his victims' voices still shake the world decades later. Chapter 1. Mad Scientist. Picture the chaos of Auschwitz arrival ramp in 1944. Frightened families, Nazi guards barking orders, and a doctor calmly pointing left or right, deciding who lives and who dies. That man was Dr. Josef Mengele, a name now synonymous with inhumane medical horror. Mengele became the most notorious of Auschwitz doctors, so feared that prisoners nicknamed him the Angel of Death. As one survivor recalled, "We feared these visits more than anything. We never knew whether we would be permitted to live. He was free to do whatever he pleased with us." Mengele's presence on the selection ramp, often with a chilling smile or a jaunty whistle, made him a symbol of Nazi cruelty. He would flick his gloved hand, sending the majority, women with children, the elderly, anyone deemed unfit, straight to the gas chambers, while a minority were spared for slave labor or his own gruesome experiments. In these moments, the 32-year-old SS doctor sealed the fate of countless innocents. Mengele personally oversaw selections and even supervised gas chamber operations at Birkenau's crematoria 4 and 5, all with an air of twisted enthusiasm that set him apart even from other camp doctors. It's no wonder that his very appearance struck terror into prisoners. He truly earned the moniker Angel of Death. But Mengele's story is not just about an evil grin on a ramp. It's about a qualified physician turned mad scientist. How does a well-educated man become the butcher of Auschwitz? To answer that, we'll dig into his background, his pseudo-scientific obsessions, the sadistic experiments that made him infamous, and the legacy of trauma he left behind. Before we move on to the next section, please don't forget to subscribe if you've liked the video so far. Chapter 2. PhD to SS Butcher. It's hard to believe, but the Angel of Death started as an ordinary student. Josef Mengele was born on March 16, 1911, in Günzburg, Germany, the eldest son of a wealthy industrial family. He was bright, ambitious, and by 1935, he earned a PhD in physical anthropology from the University of Munich, and in 1936, a medical degree. In fact, Mengele was not some quack in a uniform. He was a highly trained physician and researcher, which makes his descent into monstrosity even more disturbing. As a young scientist, he worked under Dr. Ottmar von Fuscher, a leading geneticist with a fascination for twins. Under Fuscher's mentorship at the Frankfurt Institute for Hereditary Biology, Mengele became steeped in Nazi racial science, the toxic belief that Aryan Germans were biologically superior and that traits like disease or even criminal behavior were genetic and had to be eliminated. This wasn't fringe stuff in Nazi Germany. It was mainstream science used to justify forced sterilizations, racial laws, and eventually genocide. Mengele eagerly embraced these ideas. In 1937, he joined the Nazi Party's paramilitaries, and by 1938, formally became a member of the SS, Schutzstaffel. He wasn't initially an ardent Nazi before Hitler, but once the Nazis were in power, he hitched himself to their racist ideology and biomedical agendas. During World War II, Mengele served as an SS medical officer on the Eastern Front, where he reportedly showed bravery under fire. He earned the Iron Cross First Class for saving German lives. An injury sent him back from the front in early 1943. With his background and connections, Mengele then requested a posting to Auschwitz, likely seeing an opportunity to advance his research on human subjects. His transfer was approved, and in May 1943, the 32-year-old arrived at Auschwitz-Birkenau, the Nazis' largest death camp. He came with a promotion to SS Hauptsturmführer, captain, and an aura of prestige. Colleagues noted he was handsome, immaculately groomed, and wore his uniform with an almost aristocratic flair. Dr. Edward Wirths, the chief camp physician, appointed Mengele as the lead doctor of the gypsy camp, Zig Unterlager, in Birkenau. It was an assignment that gave Mengele free rein to indulge his scientific curiosity and his cruelty. By all accounts, he relished it. Unlike other SS doctors who found the mass murder duties unpleasant, Mengele undertook his task with a flamboyant air, as one historian put it. In short order, he would turn Auschwitz into his personal laboratory of horrors. Chapter 3. Playground of Horror. At Auschwitz, Dr. Mengele's responsibility went far beyond normal medicine. In fact, SS doctors at the camp rarely treated patients at all. Their job was to implement the Nazi extermination policies in a medical guise. Mengele threw himself into this role. He was often front and center on the train unloading ramp, performing the dreaded selection of incoming Jews. As trains arrived packed with thousands of deportees, Mengele, riding crop in hand and boots polished to a shine, would inspect the bedraggled masses. With a flick of his finger, he sent the vast majority, including nearly all children, mothers with kids, the elderly, and infirm, to the left, straight to the gas chambers. A smaller number of able-bodied adults were motioned to the right, destined for forced labor. Children clinging to parents were wrenched away. Twins, or people with unusual features, caught Mengele's eye and were set aside for his experiments. Survivor testimonies describe him as eerily cheerful during selections, sometimes humming or smiling while sending families to their deaths. It's a grotesque image, a well-dressed doctor acting like a macabre conductor, directing human traffic to life or death. For those selected as his experimental subjects, being on Mengele's list meant a temporary reprieve from death. Being on Mengele's list was better than being on no list, recalled survivor Eva Moses-Kor, but it came at a terrible price. Mengele's patients were not patients at all. They were prisoners used as guinea pigs. As part of camp duty, he also did rounds in the inmate infirmary, where he would order any prisoner not recovered in 2 weeks to be gassed. In one instance, when a typhus epidemic broke out in the women's barracks, Mengele's solution was as cold-blooded as it gets. He cleared one entire block of 600 sick Jewish women and sent them all to the gas chambers. Then he had the barracks disinfected and brought in the next group of prisoners, whom he would again kill if they showed signs of disease. He repeated this process for later outbreaks of scarlet fever, etc., routinely murdering the infected as a form of disease control. For this achievement, Mengele was actually awarded the War Merit Cross, and in 1944 promoted to first physician of the Birkenau camp. By late 1944, as Auschwitz death factory roared at full capacity, the mass gassing of Hungary's Jews, among others, Mengele was at the peak of his influence in the camp. He had a research agenda, ample victims, and no scruples. Few escaped his chamber of horrors and lived to tell the tale. Chapter 4. Menu of Torture. Want to understand the world better? Start with history and subscribe to our channel. If Auschwitz was hell, then Josef Mengele's corner of it was the research wing of the underworld, a place where curiosity and cruelty were inseparable. His most infamous obsession? Twins. To Mengele and his mentor, Ottmar von Verschuer, identical twins were like a gift from nature, a perfect way to separate heredity from environment. In Nazi racial science, in Auschwitz, he suddenly had more subjects than any scientist could dream of because he made sure of it. At the unloading ramp, he'd stride down the line, calling "Zwingli, twins," and pluck them from the chaos. Parents were almost always sent to the gas chambers. The twins were herded into special barracks reserved for Mengele's experiments. By 1944, he'd collected about 1,500 pairs, over 3,000 children. What followed was not research, but a catalog of horrors. Twins endured endless nude measurements, photographs, and medical exams that went on for hours. One twin might be infected, injected, or operated on, while the other served as a control. If one died, Mengele would kill the other, often with a phenol injection to the heart, so he could dissect both and compare organs. Some procedures defied belief. Survivor Vera Alexander testified that she saw Mengele sew 2 gypsy children together back to back in a crude attempt to create conjoined twins. Their wounds festered. They died in agony. Children had blood transfusions from each other, mysterious injections that triggered fevers and swelling. and even forced inseminations. Mengele was fascinated by eye color, especially heterochromia, and injected chemicals directly into eyes in failed attempts to turn brown eyes blue. The results were predictable: infections, blindness, unbearable pain. Victims with unusual eyes were killed so their eyeballs could be shipped to Berlin for analysis. Eva Moses Kor, 10 years old, remembered 3 days a week of observation and 3 of injections. One round left her with such high fever and swelling that Mengele himself predicted she'd be dead in 2 weeks. She swore she'd prove him wrong, and she did, barely. Out of those 3,000 twins, only about 200 survived by liberation in January 1945. But twins weren't his only fixation. Mengele had a macabre interest in any physical anomaly: dwarfs, unusual proportions, genetic deformities. The most famous case was the Ovitz family, a troupe of Jewish-Romanian dwarf entertainers. He fed and clothed them better than average prisoners, solely to keep them alive for repeated blood draws, x-rays, dental extractions, and drug tests. Once done, many were killed and their skeletons sent to Berlin. Pregnant women were another target. Witnesses said Mengele would pull them from the general population for exams, then send them straight to the gas chambers, both mother and unborn child dissected afterward. Prisoners with heterochromia suffered the same fate as their eye color subjects. He also participated in experiments that sound like a twisted checklist. The first were mass sterilization trials, where they were using radiation or chemical injections, deliberate infection with typhus or tuberculosis to test treatments, unnecessary amputations and wound infliction studies, vivisections, where they were cutting open living prisoners without anesthesia, as survivor Alex Deckel testified. One victim, Yitzhak Ganon, had a kidney removed by Mengele without anesthesia. Afterward, he was forced to clean the operating room. In 1943, when Noma, a gangrenous disease, hit Roma children in the camp, Mengele treated it as a research opportunity, killing several to send their preserved heads and organs to SS labs. Even those cured by prisoner doctors were later gassed. What's chilling is that Mengele didn't see himself as a madman. He thought he was a pioneer. He sent specimens and detailed reports back to Berlin, and the German Research Foundation even funded a pathology lab for him in Auschwitz. He imagined publishing his work and becoming a respected academic after a war. In reality, his findings were scientifically worthless, built on torture, murder, and the complete abandonment of medical ethics. And yet, in Auschwitz, no one stopped him. As long as he advanced the SS extermination mission, the screams from his lab were just background noise. For his victims, though, those screams in the face of the man who caused them would never fade, even as the Nazis began losing the war. Chapter 5: Escaping Trial and Evading Justice. When the Soviets closed in on Auschwitz in January 1945, Josef Mengele didn't stick around for liberation. On January 17th, he slipped out with retreating SS troops, hauling boxes of experiment records like a twisted academic on the run. Weeks later, in a surreal twist, he was actually captured by the Americans, but they didn't recognize him. Under the fake name Fritz Holman, he passed as just another German soldier. By August 1945, the Angel of Death was free, hiding in plain sight. From 1945 to 1949, Mengele lived quietly in Bavaria, working as a farmhand, while the Nuremberg trials exposed Nazi medical crimes. Witnesses began naming him. The US and Soviets put him on wanted lists, and his wealthy family even faked reports of his death to throw off investigators. But by mid-1949, Germany was too hot. With money and forged papers from his family, Mengele slipped over the Alps to Italy and caught a ship to Argentina under the name Helmut Greger. Life in South America was shockingly comfortable. In Argentina, he even lived under his real name for a while, securing citizenship in 1956 as Jose Mengele. But when Nazi hunters closed in, especially after Adolf Eichmann's dramatic capture in Buenos Aires, Mengele bolted. Paraguay in 1959, Brazil in 1960. There, using aliases like Wolfgang Gerhard, he hid among pro-Nazi expatriates with quiet financial help from home. By the 1960s, the Mossad, West German police, and Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal were on his trail. Leads fizzled, sightings were false, and Mengele always stayed a step ahead. He died a free man in 1979, drowning after a stroke while swimming in Brazil. Buried under a fake name, His identity wasn't confirmed until 1985. For 40 years, the world chased him. He never stood trial. Justice never caught up. But the memories of his victims have ensured history never forgets, especially not the victims who survived and lived to tell the tale. Chapter 6. Surviving the Unimaginable. If you really want to understand the Angel of Death, you have to hear it from the people who faced him, not in a courtroom, but in his lab. Two survivors, worlds apart in age and background, lived through Mengele's science and carried the scars for life. Ava Moses Kaur was just 10 when she and her twin sister, Miriam, stepped off a cattle car in Auschwitz in 1944. An SS guard spotted them. Twins! And within seconds, they were torn from their mother, never to see their family again. Their luck was being handed to Josef Mengele for twin experiments. Being on Mengele's list was better than being on no list, Ava later said, because it meant you might survive a little longer. Life as a twin guinea pig was split into two routines. 3 days a week, they were paraded naked in an observation lab, poked, measured, photographed. Unbelievably demeaning, Ava recalled. The other days were worse. Blood drawn from one arm, mysterious injections in the other. One round of shots left Ava with a raging fever, swelling, and red spots. Mengele himself came to see her, and smirking told staff, "Too bad she's so young. She only has 2 weeks to live." Lying on a straw mat, Ava made a vow. I will prove him wrong. 2 weeks later, she did, barely. When the Soviets liberated Auschwitz in January 1945, she and Miriam were among only about 200 surviving twins out of 3,000. Ava spent decades tracking other twins, founding Candles, children of Auschwitz Nazi deadly lab experiment survivors. She shocked many by forgiving Mengele, not because he deserved it, but as she said, because I deserve peace. She died in 2019 at 85, still telling her story. While Ava was a child in Mengele's care, Yitzhak Gannon was a 20-year-old Greek Jew from Salonika, deported in 1944. His family was gassed on arrival. Yitzhak was selected for labor, but soon caught Mengele's eye. One day, in the camp hospital, Mengele cut into him without anesthesia. The pain was indescribable, Gannon said. Then came the moment burned into his memory. I saw my kidney pulsating in his hand. I cried like a madman. There was no pain relief, only orders to clean the bloody operating room afterward. 6 months later came another experiment, immersion in freezing water, while Mengele recorded his body's reaction. Eventually weakened and no longer useful, Gannon was sent to the gas chamber line, number 201. The chamber fit 200. That fluke saved his life. After liberation, Gannon moved to Israel and avoided doctors for 64 years. Only when he collapsed from heart failure in 2009 did surgeons discover he had one kidney. I know, he told them. The last time I saw the other one, it was in Josef Mengele's hand. These two stories, one of a child who fought to live, one of a young man who stayed silent for decades, strip away any illusion that Mengele was just following orders or doing research. They show the angel of death up close, smirking over a sick child, casually holding a man's kidney, reducing human beings to disposable lab tools. And they reminded us that survival wasn't just about liberation. It was about living with those memories for the rest of your life. Chapter 7. Stain on the World. Josef Mengele remains the ultimate symbol of medicine gone rotten, proof that a doctor's oath can be twisted into a license to kill. Unlike many Nazi perpetrators, he never faced a court. The outrage over his crimes directly shaped the 1947 Nuremberg Code, setting global standards for informed consent and humane research, a grim silver lining to the horrors of freezing experiments, twin studies, and surgical torture. Post-war justice? A mess. West Germany, Israel, and Nazi hunters pursued him for decades, but Cold War politics and dead ends let him slip away. When Brazil confirmed his death in 1985, there was relief that the chase was over, but fury that he'd lived freely for 34 years. That same year, a mock trial in Jerusalem gathered over 100 survivors. They told the world about sterilizations, dissections, and twins sewn together, testimonies that convicted him in history's eyes. Poetic twist: his skeleton now sits in a Sao Paulo forensic museum, teaching medical students what never to do. His son Rolf met him in 1977 and found a man without a shred of remorse. Mengele claimed he'd never harmed anyone, and even said twins owed their lives to me. Survivors carried lifelong wounds, infertility, chronic pain, and trauma, but many, like Ava Kor, turned pain into activism. As Renee Firestone put it, "We are living proof of his failure." Mengele wanted them erased. Instead, their stories outlive him. Today, his name remains shorthand for the evil doctor, a cautionary tale taught in every medical school, and the cry of never again still echoes with the weight of real, lived horror. If Josef Mengele had been captured alive, do you think the world would remember him differently? Or would the horrors he committed still overshadow any trial he could have faced? Let us know in the comments below. Here's another video history buffs enjoyed watching. Goodbye for now.